Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our latest webinar. My name's Claire Joyce. I'm the Content Director at and it's going to be another great webinar with the team from Gathered Here. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of country throughout Australia. I am on the beautiful lands of the Gundagara and Darug people, and it is a gorgeous springtime day here. So I hope wherever you are, and thank you so much. I can see lots of people in the chat are telling us where they are. We really appreciate it. So we can see who everyone is. Okay, before we get to the main event, just a little bit of housekeeping. You're saying hi in the chat, so yay. Please put your questions in the Q&A box and we'll have plenty of time to address them at the end of the presentation. You will be getting the slides and the recordings, so look out for an email in the next couple of days so you can watch it at your leisure, again, if you need to, and you can download the slides. There's also, you can have if you've got any comments, please put them in the chat, but if they are actual questions, the Q&A box is the best place for them. Okay, let's get started. We've got Adam and Mike here from Gathered Here. They've got some very interesting research and insight to share with you. So let's take it away, Adam. Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks, Claire. And yes, thank you to everyone for joining us. And great to see so many people in the chat already. But yeah, let's go ahead and get started. So today we're going to be talking about some of the phenomenal growth that we've seen of online wills and digital bequests, really kind of delving into the story behind why they've boomed and what some of those key drivers are, and probably most importantly, what it means for the future of legacy fundraising. So I'll have a quick look at our agenda for today. We'll start with a really quick introduction, and we'll take a look at the story so far and some of those key drivers of that change. Finally, we'll look at what this all kind of means for the future. And as we've mentioned, we'll have some time for Q&A at the end. We do have a colleague answering questions in the background as we go. So if anything does sort of spring to mind as Mike or I are chatting through everything today, please do pop it in the Q&A box. She'll get back to you straight away, and we might answer some of those live as well at the end of the slides today. But as Claire mentioned, please do make sure that you do use the specific Q&A box for that. Just makes it a bit easier to make sure we don't miss anyone's questions amongst some of the other chat going on there. But let's dive into some intros. My name is Adam. I'm the head of partnerships at Gathered Here. That is a photo of me, just with a bit more hair, so apologies for the difference there. It's me and my team at Gathered Here, really the ones that you'll be working with if and when you consider kind of joining the Gathered Here platform. We'll talk about any goals or concerns that you might have and help you to figure out which of the features of our platform are right for you and which kind of tier within our subscription options might be the best choice. Pretty much my entire career has been spent within the nonprofit sector, and I, as well as the full team, we really understand that there's a pretty different ecosystem when it comes to the NFP space, to the traditional sort of corporate space. We appreciate that you guys have so much pressure on you to spend wisely and responsibly, and we understand that. We just want to reassure you that if you do reach out, whether it's just for a walkthrough of our platform or to learn a bit more, finding out pricing and features and that sort of thing, you're never going to get a hard sell out of me or anyone in my team, just honest information and advice. And I'm also joined by Mike, who is our head of partner success. Mike, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Thanks, Adam. And yes, that's also a picture of me. I've probably gone the other way. I normally have a sharper fade happening, but I couldn't book in a last minute appointment yesterday. But lovely to see so many people attending today. So as Adam mentioned, I lead the partner success team at Gathered Here. So whilst Adam and his team really focus on working with potential partners before they've joined Gathered Here, me and my team, we look after everyone once they've actually joined. And that could be anything from helping you find a strategy that's realistic and effective for gifts and wills in your organization, supporting you with running campaigns, which I'm sure a lot of people have had a very busy few weeks of in the last few weeks around IAC and Wills Month, getting free creatives from us, and also just figuring out the quirks of the platform as well. We'll both be hosting today's webinar, so you do have a bit of variety, and we're both really looking forward to taking you through some insights and stats and topics today. So enough about me. Let's have a look at Gathered Here. So we'll keep this brief, but just to give people a bit of context who might not be overly familiar with us, we have written over 120,000 wills online, and that's all been created through our platform. And every single one of those wills has been free. People are very happy with the service that we're providing, and we have an average review rating of 4.9 stars out of 5 and around 5,500 five-star reviews from verified will writers as well. Of course, a lot of that results in a lot of trust and support from charity partners, and we've very recently actually crossed a milestone of over 1,000 charities and non-for-profits that partner with us, and more so, an estimated $1.4 billion has been pledged via wills written on the Gathered Here platform. So yeah, with those stats out of the way, let's talk about what we're really here for. So let's start with the 558% growth, which refers to the growth in the value of gifts pledged from 2021 to 2025. So believe it or not, that 558% figure is actually not the largest one that we'll be talking about today, but we know that the total value really is what matters most to you, and so that's the one that we've used. In 2021, which was our first full year of offering free online wills, just under $82 million was pledged. As of last week, $400 million has been pledged this year alone in our platform, and we've got very conservative predictions that put that figure of over 538 million by the end of the year, which is where that 558% growth is coming from. Obviously, this is an incredible level of growth that and in just a few years as well. Again, looking at 2021 to 2025. And looking back at that first full year, it's amazing to see how far online wills have come, how much work charities and people like yourselves have put into getting the message out there to their supporters, and obviously how well they've been embraced by the general public, which is an important factor. But as I said, that's only a part of the story. So let's talk about the actual number of gifts pledged rather than the overall value. So when we look at those figures, we actually have projected growth of over 1,200%, again, from 2021 to 2025, and almost 24,000 gifts have been pledged through the platform. Now, clearly, there's a disparity here between the growth of gifts pledged versus the growth of total value. So you might be wondering what's going on. And this is because we are seeing an increase in people pledging multiple gifts. So if someone decides that they want to leave a 20% residual gift or 20% of their estate to a charity, they're more likely to leave that to 2 or 3 charities rather than just to a single charity. Here's what that looked like from 2021 to 2024. We will have new data for 2025 for you in our next Gifts in Wills report next year. But but you can see the general trend here that's going obviously upwards. So in 2021, the average gifts per gifter was 1.4, but last year that increased and reached 2.8. So naturally, this is reducing the average gift value, but more importantly, it's increasing the number of gifts, which is really fantastic news for bequest fundraisers. Historically, bequests have been a much rarer form of giving, sort of like the golden goose egg, where you might get a big one every once in a while, but that's actually changing. So bequests are becoming much more popular. It's a normalized form of giving, which in time is going to obviously create a really, really consistent revenue stream for charities, which we believe will lead to greater funding, of course, and resource allocations for bequest teams, and a whole lot more support for the great work that you do. And of course, there are a lot of different factors going into this, one of which is obviously greater participation in online will writing. So this graph looks at the number of wills created on Gathered here year on year. And you can see those first 3 years there are relatively modest growth. And we moved from 7,500 wills in 2021 up to 15,500 wills in 2022, with only a very slight increase the following year for wills specifically created in 2023. But in 2024, awareness of online wills and acceptance by the public suddenly shot up, and we had 37,500 wills written last year. And we expect that to be over 61,000 wills written this year alone as well. So in total, there have already been more than 120,000 wills created on our platform, which is obviously incredible growth. That's more people that can obviously fit into the entire MCG for any sports fans out there, given grand final week as well. But of course, this is this isn't just seeing this success. There are multiple online will providers across Australia, New Zealand, the UK, and US, all over. They're seeing so much growth and uptake, again, in just a few short years. So when you think about it, we really only saw the first major online will providers launch less than 10 years ago. And now we're in an environment where tens of billions of dollars are being pledged through this stream, and hundreds of thousands of wills are being written. So it's a completely different landscape to where we were, again, just 10 years ago. And I don't want to get too pie in the sky and dreamy on you, but it kind of makes you think about, well, what will the next 10 years look like in terms of online wills and digital bequests? So anyway, let's stay focused. What's actually driving this? What is actually driving this increased participation in online will writing? There's quite a few things behind that. So I will throw back to you, Adam, to discuss some of those drivers of change.
Thanks, Mike. So we do have a pretty wide range of different social, economic, technological factors that are all really supporting the growth of online wills. First of all, online wills themselves, the websites, the platforms, the overall user experience, it's all improved dramatically over time, which is helping not only with will writing rates, but also with gift pledging rates. Some of those data points that Mike talked us through. In turn, that's all leading to greater consumer trust and awareness. We all know there's no better marketing than word of mouth, and especially when we're talking about something as personal as wills. The improved product and the broader consumer awareness is also really giving more charities the confidence to adopt online wills and start to factor that into their bequest strategies, promoting these online platforms to their supporters, all of which contributes to greater will writing. Outside the improved sort of online will product itself, we're seeing a general modernization of death planning. There's a lot of end-of-life services that were once kind of exclusively in person, and a lot of that is starting to move online. Part of this is driven by broader adoption of tech services just across the board. The trope of older people not being comfortable with technology, well, that probably still rings true a little bit. I would certainly say it's a bit of an overgeneralization at this point. And the next point here, as much as it pains me to admit, but another important factor here is that we're seeing digital natives, people who grew up with technology or nearing or even entering the middle age. Many of them have homes, families, planning for the future, and they are turning to tech solutions as a first priority to help them do that. And finally, online wills are affordable. Times are hard for a lot of people out there, and I'm sure a lot of the people on the call today appreciate that more than most when we're talking about the impact across the sector. But just appreciating that times are hard, and if there are economic or financial pressures to contend with, of course, you're going to turn to a free or more affordable service wherever you can. But let's dig a bit more into a few of these factors here. Of course, there have been improvements across the board. We can only really speak to our own product, of course. So talking specifically about Gathered here, we've been able to invest quite significantly in some major improvements to our platform. We've conducted interviews and research with will writers over the years, really focused on finding various pain points and helping to resolve them. We've streamlined the entire sign-up and will writing process with improved instructions within the app. We've removed various elements that people found confusing, and we've created more flexible gifting options, which is obviously a big driving factor in some of those data points that Mike talked us through. We've also created tons of really helpful educational content that really helps will writers through the process. We've added instant chat function to our platform. It's all staffed by real humans to help ensure that there's feedback in real time and assistance that we can offer people if they do get stuck in the will writing process. And you can actually see some of the comparisons here that these sort of user experience upgrades have really had on the data itself. Because the product has been really designed to make it as easy as possible for people to pledge gifts, we see far more gifts being pledged than what we do in traditional wills. Around 8% of traditional or solicitor drafted wills include a charitable gift, whereas we're seeing a giving rate of around 16%. And many of those have multiple gifts, as Mike mentioned before. And then when we start looking at the sort of breakdown of those gifts themselves, we can see that less than half of the gifts in those traditional wills were residual gifts, which we know tend to be far greater value than a specific dollar amount. In comparison, 81% of the gifts from our platform were residual, and that's really down to the design of the platform itself and how easy we make it for people to actually include a residual gift in their will. So we know that online wills make it easier for people to support charities, and of course, we have a real-time support within our team to support that as well. Here's a few screenshots of what that real-time support looks like. Don't worry, I'm not going to walk everyone through every single change and upgrade that we've made across our entire Wheels platform, but I think some of our existing partners on here have probably seen and heard enough about that, so we won't do that. But look, if you do want to run through things in any more detail, please do feel free to book in a walkthrough with myself or anyone in the team. We'd be happy to take you through what some of those upgrades across the board sort of look like. But look, because we have been able to invest in a bunch of improvements and because wheel writers are getting a better experience, it's obviously helping the message spread, which really helps to build that consumer trust that we've been talking about and that awareness piece increasing with online wheel writing. Mike, I think consumer trust and awareness, as well as the charity partner participation side of things, really aligns a bit more with your day to day. So I might pass back to you to talk us through the next few slides.
Sure. Thank you, mate. So online wills are far more trusted now than where they were 4 or 5 years ago. So people, I think, can be naturally skeptical when something new enters the market, but over time, the value really speaks for itself. So like I highlighted earlier, with Gathered here, we currently have over 5,500 5-star reviews from verified will writers. And what's great is that over 99% of users recommend us as well. So we also see a whole lot of positive comments and feedback from people. All of this just works to further strengthen trust in online wills. People check out reviews, they see specific helpful comments, and they feel empowered to act and to try it themselves. For anyone here who is still a bit skeptical about online wills, and I'm sure there's one, and that's obviously okay, I encourage you to have a look at reviews online and see what people using them are actually saying. And of course, all of this doesn't just impact consumers, it also leads to greater charity and non-for-profit participation as well. So again, we've gone from having just 74 partners at the end of 2021 to over 1,000 partners now. And I say just 74, but those early adopters and foundational partners obviously helped us validate the market need for digital bequests, not just from a will writer perspective, but also in terms of how we deliver value and results to charities, which is really critical, right? And virtually all of those charity partners are still with us nearly 5 years down the track, which is great. But we're at 1,000 partners now, and that's an interesting one because the more consumer trust and awareness there is, then the more charities are obviously adopting and integrating and promoting online wills. But we know how important your supporters are to you, not just from your financial standpoint. We know that you want them to feel looked after and appreciated, and you want them to have a great experience when they're going through that process of writing a will and choosing to pledge a gift. But consumer trust and awareness is also being driven by charities and non-for-profits. So just like, again, you care about your supporters, your supporters trust you, they trust that you're recommending a quality service that is genuinely helpful and can make a real impact. So it's flowing both ways. What's interesting is that most people who come to Gathered here to write a will of their own accord, we call them high intent will writers. They're already thinking about writing their will and looking at options. But many of the people that come to Gathered here from charity campaigns or communications, they're not quite as high intent will writers, right? They're the people who might not have ever considered writing a will before, but they really want to support the cause or causes that they care about. So that's also helping spread awareness of online wills, pushing them into mainstream awareness and contributing to the phenomenal levels of growth that we're seeing. Is an interesting slide. So another reason online wills are taking off is simply because of generational aging. So this sounds quite scary, and it definitely makes me feel quite old, but tech natives, people who have grown up around technology, are now nearing or entering middle age. So elder millennials are now in their 40s. Even the youngest millennials are reaching the age where people often buy homes, they start families, they begin real serious and long-term life planning. Many people in this generation have always had tech solutions for whatever life task that they have at hand. So things like organizing leisure and entertainment, travel and accommodation, finances, investing, beauty and healthcare, fitness, shopping, DIY projects, home maintenance, house hunting, of course, meal prepping. There's endless, and even getting updates from your kids at school. You get the point, is that everything is done via an app now, and literally every aspect of life has a tech solution, and we have come to expect that. Death planning has just joined that list a little bit later. So many of the than the ones that largely because people, it's really not something that they're thinking about all the time, or until they're a little bit older. But now that they are, it's an expectation that there is a tech solution for what they're thinking about, or multiple tech solutions to help them manage it in a more effective way. And when there is a tech solution, it often makes things much more accessible for everyone. It means that we can get higher rates of will writing in demographics that typically wouldn't traditionally be considered as particularly likely to write a will. So, of course, now that death planning is finally getting the tech overhaul, we are ushering in a new age where it's modernized, it's destigmatized, which is really important, and with the whole lot more options for individual people. So just to talk about Gathered here for a second and to give you some historical context, aside from offering online wills, Gathered here also operates as an online comparison site for funeral directors, celebrants, headstone masons, and that sort of thing. So we launched all the way back in 2017, and the aim again was to modernize the death planning space and make it far more transparent and equitable. We were the first in Australia to do that, and we actually got a lot of pushback at the time, again in 2017. So if you Google Colin Wong, our founder, you'll find that how he ruffled some feathers and actually received a few legal threats. Luckily, not death threats, which would have been ironic in our line of work, but legal threats telling him to stop, because a lot of funeral directors were very much against that level of transparency that we were unlocking, and continue to do so today. That flipped on its head. So, and that's the point of tech disruption, is that now we have over 800 funeral directors listed in our comparison engine, including some of the ones who were extremely resistant to begin with, which just goes to show how much progress is being made in modernizing death planning. And we're not alone in modernizing death planning. There are many different sites and services that now are beginning to tap into the death planning space and offer solutions that we've seen across every other industry. There are sites where you can publish death notices, you can create advanced care plans, you can record a message, a video message for after your death. There's also a lot of alternatives to traditional burials and cremations with biodegradable urns and coffins, water cremations, and natural burials as well. So the expectations are really shifting around death and death planning, which is pushing more people of all ages, cultures, backgrounds, whatever, into considering their death and looking into tech solutions that help them navigate and do that. All of this goes hand in hand with will writing, which again is pushing up the online will writing rates. And of course, a lot of this is being driven by broader adoption of technology and tech services in general. So yes, digital natives might be the first to kick things off, but we can't overlook other generations. There's a broader adoption and a greater use of technology and digital services across literally every single generation. And that was partly driven by COVID, when many people had no option but to use technology for a variety of reasons. But that really gave a lot of perhaps older people more confidence and experience. And so now they're applying that to other things as well. According to the Australian government and the Australian Communications and Media Authority, internet use for people aged between 65 and 74 years old increased from 71% in 2019 to 98% in 2022. And internet use for people over aged of 75 almost doubled from that same time frame, 2019 to 2022, from 52% to 94%. So we know that there is a huge contributing factor to the growth in online wills. That stereotype of older generations avoiding technology is becoming very outdated. When we look at will writing rates on gathered here, over a third of our wills, 35% in fact, were written by over 55-year-olds, and 16% were written by people over the age of 65. And finally, a pretty obvious one, but economic and financial pressures are also pushing people towards free or cheaper alternatives. So the percentage of people who find it difficult or very difficult to cope on their income doubled from 17.1% in November 2020 to 34.6% in January 2024. 69% of Australian households are dealing with financial stress, and 70% of New Zealanders worry about money either daily, weekly, or monthly. So when you think that traditionally even a basic will drafted by a solicitor easily runs into the hundreds of dollars, sometimes the thousands of dollars to plan and execute, it's easy to see why this would be something that people put off on the back burner. But when there's a free option, that barrier obviously isn't there anymore. And that's the barrier that we're breaking down. Now, we are always very, very clear about the fact that online wills can't do everything. For some people, there's just no other option than going to a solicitor or a lawyer to draft their will. But for lots and lots of people who have very straightforward wishes, online wills will absolutely more than suffice. And in a time when a lot of people are really struggling financially, a free alternative to a solicitor is a no-brainer. That's probably enough from me. Adam, do you want to round this out and dive into the future of online wills?
Yeah, definitely. Thanks, Mike. So just bringing everyone back to this page for a moment, there are so many drivers contributing towards the increased rates of online will writing. We're in a moment right now where online wills are shifting into the mainstream, and if your organization isn't exploring the methods of using online wills to attract bequests, unfortunately, we genuinely believe that you're going to be at a bit of a disadvantage in terms of future revenue, simply because it's harder for your supporters to actually support you. We know people are already turning online to write their wills, so being there where they're writing their wills is obviously key to being involved. And look, I'm curious, and no doubt there will be some organizations here that haven't made the decision yet or have some big reservations, but please feel free to pop in the comments or the Q&A if you do if you are happy to share any of those concerns or reservations, be happy to chat through some of those. But before we do get into the Q&A, I wanted to spend a bit more time talking about the future. Now, I'm sure it won't come to surprise anyone here that Australia's population growth is slowing, and our elderly population is increasing. We're seeing an increase in annual deaths. The number of annual deaths is expected to climb from around 180,000 currently to over 330,000 within 40 years. And that's not just the number of deaths increasing, but also the death rate itself. The death rate is currently around 5.9. And the UN predicts that by 2050, it's going to reach 8.6. And that's per 1,000 of the estimated population. This goes back to what I was saying earlier about bequests really shifting to becoming a revenue stream that's far more central to organizational strategies, because the number and value of bequests, they're both going to skyrocket, not only because of online wills, but societal and demographic shifts as well. Of course, you're all probably familiar with what this shift means. We're on the precipice of the great wealth transfer. Over the next 25 years, the total inheritances are expected to near $6 trillion. In 2018, before online wills were really mainstream, around $100 billion was transferred from deceased estates, and only about 2% of that money went to charities. However, by 2050, it's expected that baby boomers will be passing on $224 billion every year. Now, even if that giving rate stays the same at that 2% figure, we'd be looking at almost $4.5 billion coming through to charities each and every year. But we've seen major differences in giving rates and the uptake of online will writing. So that 2% figure there is certainly conservative. And for charities and NFPs that are integrating online wills, I'm confident that significant revenue is going to be flowing through those channels in the coming years. And I know 2050 seems a long way away, but scarily enough, we're actually closer to 2050 now than we are to 2000. So for anyone who remembers the millennium like it was yesterday, you fully appreciate how quickly that date is going to be here. And finally, I wanted to address something that always comes up around online wills, which is whether or not they're being used properly by people who have large estates. We get a lot of feedback that online wills are for people with lower value estates, and not for supporters who have some of those larger estate values. But quite simply, that's not the case in terms of what we're seeing. Australia is among the top globally for average household wealth, and places even higher on median wealth measures across the world, meaning that there's a more even spread here than across most countries. So even a modest household here, and the estate value can be quite high. Looking only at gathered here wills that have gone through probate, the average value of those estates was $725,000. The largest estate value that's come through from a gathered here will was 2.5 million. So there's some very significant estates being managed and distributed via online wills. Now that brings us to the end of the slides. I'm happy to do some Q&A today for anybody that does have any questions, and apologies for anyone who's feeling a bit older now than they were at the beginning of the webinar, myself included. There's a few startling factors in there, but I think it is important to give some context to some of those key points and the impact that really has in terms of online wills and bequests. So.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Adam. Thank you, Mike. Okay, we do have some questions here, which Nicola has been assiduously addressing in the chat, in the Q&A box, but let's have a quick look at some of these questions. This is probably the $1.4 billion question. Of those pledges, how many have actually been realised and shared with charities? Nicola has written in here that you have limited visibility because there's no central database of probate files, but you've processed several gifts pledged, and just as you explained there with one of the larger ones, and you're working on bringing charities more information on this subject soon. Do you care to elaborate on that, Adam or Mike, what that timeline might look like?
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in here. I think, one of the key things there that Nicola sort of addressed in the response already is there is no requirement for any executor or beneficiary to come back to gathered here, whether that's gathered here legal or my team or Mike's team and kind of let us know about any gifts that have been realized. So there is definitely a bit of mystery around that. Now we have been notified from a few of our charity partners, and we have had a number of gathered here wills come back through gathered here legal for probate. So obviously that's where we're able to get some of the stats that we do have. I think the important thing there to kind of frame that is it is really just a matter of time before we do have some more of that data and are able to share some more useful information there. We're sort of just starting to see some of those reports more around gift realization coming out of the US and the UK, where online wills have been around for probably about 5 years longer than what they have been here. If you recall that previous slide where we looked at some of the global online wills platforms. So look, it's inevitable, right? It's death and taxes, so it will
Yeah.
come. But yeah, since launching the platform end of 2020, there haven't been that many people that we've seen write a will and pass away. So the data is there and it is growing. But yeah, I'd say in the next few years, keep your eyes out for an invite to another one of these webinars where we'll talk a lot more about realization of gifts from online wills. But yeah, just early days is probably the short answer there.
Yeah. Okay, great. Well, and that makes perfect sense, really, doesn't it? Given that it's a new and growing market. I have a question here. I've got some open questions. I can see that Nicola is typing, but I'm just going to ask this one from Alicia. It's like, I'd love to ask about the growth metrics shared, specifically what kind of growth you're seeing in the realization of gifts. And we've just discussed this. It would be great to understand this as measuring the inclusion wills alone. Whoop, it's gone. She's answered it. Now I have to go down here. If those guilds seem like a vanity metric, if those guilds aren't ultimately realized. And I think that you just answered any of this. So perhaps maybe just make it a little bit clearer to people that that you are working on this, and as it is a very sort of, I guess, new situation for people to be able to pledge gifts online in their wills, that this data is being gathered. I don't know whether you wanted to add anything, or we think we've covered that all.
Yeah, I think there's another important element to that, which
Yeah.
is the nature of gifts and wills has always been kind of plagued with some of those issues around actually realizing the gifts and contested estates and things like that. And I mean, we don't need to go into the whole rule of thirds when we talk about bequests and things like that. I'm sure everyone's familiar with that. But I think a big part of what we're doing and really what we're striving for is around providing some more insights around that data. Now, look, I'm certainly not going to sit here and say that 100% of the data that we're providing is 100% accurate all of the time. There will be variations there. Again, that's kind of nature of gifts and wills. But one of the big things for us, and really where we feel we're providing a lot of value, and certainly I think Mike would agree in terms of the feedback from a lot of our partners, is having those insights to be able to plan a little bit more, to do a little bit more of what's working well, to adjust things that maybe aren't seeing some of the conversion rates that we'd hope to see. It's not a plug and play ultimate solution for if you do this, absolutely this money will be coming through in exactly these denominations one day. But certainly when we start looking at a lot of what we've been speaking about here today in terms of the volume of gifts that are coming through, we feel it's pretty important to be a part of that and sort of
Yeah.
that long-term element of it.
The
Yeah.
realization piece is very important. We get it. One of the key benefits of our platform is less surprises. Is like it's great when you receive a bequest that you didn't realize, but this helps you plan for that and see it in advance with different demographics based on obviously age. Obviously, it's a sensitive topic to talk about, but you can filter based on age and say, okay, well, what is the likelihood of the realization of this gift and which time frame? But I try and encourage charities to flip gifts and wills on their head, and realization is great, but with online platforms like Gathered Here, is you can now build that connection with the person, and that could be over a 20-year stewardship journey where they'll increase their gift if they've built a great connection with your organization. So it's the visibility piece now that really helps you unlock, yes, future realization, but what you get now might not actually be what you get in the future. You've got the opportunity to actually increase it or turn that supporter into other ways of supporting your organization throughout that journey as well.
Okay, great. Melanie asked about the expected timeline. So this ties into all of those things. And Nicola has said that looking from the point of probate backwards rather than forwards, she's got the average time between completion and death was 3.3 years, compared to 8.7 years for will kits and 13.6 years for solicited drafted wills. I will add, if this is any help to people, like from the benchmarking project stats, which of course is around 40-something Australian charities and a handful of New Zealand charities, and mostly large charities, that there's usually the average is an 18-year gap between the first gift to a charity and a realised gift, and 30% of donors are confirmed their intention within the first 5 years of that first gift. So if that's helpful to you to compare to what's going on here. I'll go back to the open questions here. Sandra asks, how do you make money out of people writing will in a free gift, for a free will?
I mean, take this one, Mike.
Go for it.
So like the short answer is we don't make money on free wills. For us, wills were really kind of a solution to a problem that we saw through the probate side of our business, in terms of just the volume of people who were passing away without a will, and kind of with respect to how much more difficult that process is, not only for the survivors, but from a legal perspective and things like that as well. So for us, we created the wills platform as that kind of solution. We knew that the two biggest hurdles for why people aren't writing wills are it's too hard and it's too expensive. So what better way to solve that than put it online, make it easy to use and accessible, and make it free? For us, in terms of the growth, we saw a number of people starting to include charities in their wills, and we wanted to kind of take what we built and start working directly with those charity organizations. So it's become more of a social impact piece for us. Now, in terms of commercially, the organization, we are not a charity ourselves. We do make money. It's not from the wills. It comes from our charity partners. We have different pricing tiers, including a free subscription, but we do have paid options there. We hope that a lot of our partners see value in that premium tier, and currently a few hundred of them are. So there are some great services there. We obviously do make money from that subscription revenue. And then there are some advertising opportunities, which I guess is sort of a roundabout way where we do make money from a free will. If somebody writes a free will on our platform, they leave a gift to an organization who has spent money to advertise within our platform. We are obviously making some money from that advertising side of things. So happy to get more into that in a more detailed answer and run through those specifics with anyone who would like some more information. But hopefully that gives a good sort of overview of the financial side of things for Gathered here, and commercially how it all works.
Thanks, Adam, for your transparency. Faye asked, where is the data stored? Which is a good question.
Yeah, it's all housed in, I believe it's all in Sydney, but yeah, all within Australia through AWS. So.
Okay, great. Faye also asks about errors in wills. Does online will hold up in court? What happens if there are errors in the will?
That's a good one. I can take that one, Adam. So we actually see less errors in online wills than you do in traditional wills, obviously, yeah, and even sometimes legally drafted by a lawyer as well. So we have a previous webinar that addressed specifically like the big legal questions answered, is what we called it, and so we can share that with you directly, Faye. We'll make a note of that. But there's been times where there's been slight errors, but again, the wills themselves have been gone through the probate process in court and upheld, and we have a very, very strong success rate with our probate team in online drafted wills, be it from the Gathered Here platform, but we've also done it for other online will providers as well.
Wonderful, thank you. In terms of the stats that you came up about the bequest market from 2018 versus 2050, I guess Nina is referring here to the wealth transfer. Where did you get those statistics from?
Might let Nicola answer that one. She's the one who's done most of the research for the data points here. Yeah, I imagine there'll be a few different resources that all come into effect there.
That'll be coming in the Q&A and the answered. There's some great research from JB Weir on the transfer of wealth as well. So I am wondering, Susanna asks, I'm wondering what are some of the key benefits of your platform services compared to Safe Will? So I guess there are other providers out there. I don't know whether you want to take this now or you want to take this offline, but it's up to you to
Yeah, look, I'm happy to give an answer there. Look, we tend to shy away from the us versus them discussions, but it is a fair question, and obviously, you need to make a decision that you're comfortable with for yourself and your supporters. Without getting too into it, I think one of the big things is our wills are always free. And I think there's two really important parts to that answer. There's the word free and there's the word always.
Yeah.
And to me, I think the always element of that is almost a bigger factor. What I sort of talk about is price consistency within our platform. I think that's a really key bit of what we're offering to our partners and subsequently what you're able to offer your supporters. It just gives you a lot more flexibility in terms of what you'd like to do in terms of campaigns and messaging, when you'd like to do that. You have confidence that no matter what link any of your supporters click to come to our website, where that link has come from or what time of year it is, they're always going to be presented with the same solution, which is a free online bill.
And one
Okay.
thing that we're going to continue to do and do better is figure out the right ways for us as a business to lean further into will writer education on the impact that their will can obviously have for charity organizations and why it is free as well. So everything that we're doing is certainly aligned with delivering value to charity partners, as Adam mentioned. If you're on our premium tier, it means you're investing money into the platform, right? So we've got to find ways to deliver value, and some of that is getting more wills written with more gifts in them and things like that. And we'll continue to deliver features and a great user experience for the will writer that translates into value, obviously, for charity organizations.
Great, thanks, Mike. Faye's got a couple of questions here about if people don't share their details, how can you steward them? Well, that's a bit hard, isn't it? So I'm not sure what you do to encourage people to share their details. And the second one is if they select not to notify the charity, who notifies the charity when the time comes? I presume that's the lawyers.
So that just aligned with some of the things I was talking about
Yeah.
around delivering more value and then encouraging that opt-in as well. That's part of that puzzle. Opt-in rates are typically 50% or slightly over 50%. So you're certainly going to get access to these confirmed bequesters and their details more often than not. But we do provide, obviously, for privacy reasons, the ability to not do that. You've still got access to reportable data, again, depending on what tier of our platform you're on. You do have access to reportable data, but no, if someone opts out, you can't steward them through that journey. But again, that's something that we're thinking about in-house in terms of, well, how can we build an experience on behalf of charity organizations for that?
Okay, great. Julia asked about the details of the cost for the organizations. I guess that's for the premium tier.
Yeah, so we have our basic tier, which is completely free, and then we have our premium tier. It's $599 a month is the price there. There are different price points for smaller organizations as well. But look, anyone who's interested in price, my recommendation is please reach out to me or anyone on the team. We can sort of take you through exactly the inclusions across those tiers so that you've got a good idea of kind of what sits where and what kind of a timeline might look like for getting the full suite of features versus starting off on the free subscription.
Yes, exactly. Well, Sue does point out that you make money from the charities who are on the premium tier. So fair enough. Amelia asks, what kind of data are they invited to share? I guess that's the will writers. Are they encouraged to let the charity know? I guess what are your comms and what is your supporting copy around the website in that respect?
I can take this one. So we actually regularly trial sort of different wording and different ways that question is presented to people. Quite often that's in line with working with some of our partners to kind of get their feedback from a charity perspective in terms of how that question is presented. As Mike kind of mentioned, it is a fine line for us to sort of straddle there. We obviously appreciate that there is huge value in being able to access that data from a charity perspective, but we do obviously have the will writer coming to us for as a platform that they're entrusting to write their will with, and we have to be mindful of their privacy preferences there as well. So currently in the platform, it is presented at the end of the will writing process. They're presented with what we call the thank you section. They're asked if they're happy to share their details with any organizations they've included, and that's really presented as by sharing your information, it makes it easier for charities and NFPs to plan around this gift that you've left. But again, we've trialed a few different things over the years. varying levels of success. As Mike mentioned, we've landed in a pretty good spot where we have over 50% of people choosing to share their details. But yeah, it is a tricky one, and there's kind of the funny relationship between us, the wheel riders, the supporters of the charities, and the charities working with us. So being mindful of everyone getting the best experience out of that is something that it's always really top of mind for us.
Thanks, Adam. Then Owen asks, how are the wills carried out and distributed via usual process of executor, etc., or is there some automation on that front as well?
So all very much still just standard. There's some glaring updates that probably need to be made to some of the legislation that would make things a bit faster and easier to do online, but until courts are willing to start accepting more digital signatures and that sort of thing, yeah, still very much the traditional way that all of that's carried out.
Okay, great. Laura asks, other than include a charity week, what time of the year do you recommend for marketing gifts and wills or pushing with gifts and wills? Do you have a view on this with your experience?
I certainly do. So I'll take that one, Adam. It really depends on many, many factors, to be honest. And I know that's just a bit of a cop-out question, but it could be aligned with your fundraising calendar. Like, are you running events? Are you running other email campaigns at a certain time of the year? Donor fatigue is pretty real out there, right? So you don't want to send too much messaging asking for too much all the time. But what we really want to work with our charity partners is specifically on what does their comms calendar look like? And then outside of those peak will writing times that we see, yes, around September or include a charity week, and typically in the new year as well, when people think about finances and life admin, is how can we better push gifts and wills through your various campaigns outside of those times. And it really depends on, again, your comms calendar, your events, your cause area, awareness weeks. Obviously in October, I think is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. So, your fundraising around different times of the year might have different goals and different streams that you're focusing on. And we have a dedicated campaigns team, or in the partner success team, we really do like to work hand in hand with our charities to understand what does their campaigning look like, and then when can gifts and wills tap into that specifically, and then when can we obviously be softly in the background all throughout the year as well, because gifts and wills is a long-term play.
Great. Thank you, Mike. Perhaps this is for you, Adam. Will you ever consider charging less for premium tier people for the credits if the credit is anonymous? Asks Sue.
Would we consider it? Sure, I'd say we'd consider it. Look, there's no kind of immediate plans on changing the pricing structure there. I think for us, more of the future state of that kind of comes back to what some of Mike was mentioning before around looking at ways to be working with our partners around kind of that stewardship of those confirmed anonymous bequesters, which is this kind of funny group of people that we've created and shown a spotlight on. Traditionally doesn't exist. If somebody's included in their will and not told you about it, you just have no way of knowing. And now we're going, well, look, it's here, but we still can't tell you who they are. I think one of the big things for us is being really mindful of the broad scale and kind of the big picture of the value that's coming through the platform, and our price model is really built on that. So we do encourage our partners to kind of look at things not as granular as one credit and one gift and what that kind of means, but kind of looking big picture and over the course of a year, how many new bequests are coming through. But we fully appreciate that obviously there's a lot more value in a confirmed bequest from somebody who's opted in than somebody who's opted out. So we are working towards developing the best solutions that we can around that as well.
Okay, there was a question about verifying the identity of people making wills from Debbie. Nicola has answered this, saying that every will writer is required to set up a password protected account with email verification. So, in case you're wondering, but there's no ID verification at this point. This is on our product discovery roadmap. So she says to watch this space. Adam, where are we at with this? Do you know?
Yeah, look, it's unfortunately, this is one of those key examples of things that to me, a non-tech person, sounds really simple to build in. And then when you start looking at what's actually involved in that, there are a significant number of moving pieces. I think this comes back to another one of those balances that we have to find within our platform of the value to the will writers and the value to our partners and what that means. And coming back to one of the things I said before is, we know one of the hurdles for will writing is it's too hard. And so we have to really balance out that creating more steps in the platform to give more assurance to people on the other end. Well, what's the value in that for the will writer versus keeping the sign up flow really quick and simple so they can just get started and write their will. But obviously, we appreciate that that's that kind of additional identification, validation, or verification is obviously quite important. So yeah, working through a few different solutions there to kind of see what's where we can land in terms of the best experience for everyone involved in the platform.
Absolutely. Okay. Maria asks about the do you do anything to prompt writers to complete the will process to ensure they have printed and completed the witness signature? And I think that Nicola's outlined that you have a 6-week of follow-up email. So yes, you do have some journeys there for people so that they keep moving through the process. Perhaps you'd like to elaborate on that a little bit.
Yeah, we touched on it in the webinar. Yeah, we periodically do interviews with will writers as well. One of the questions there is always, have you actually finished off getting this document executed and things like that. So it is a tricky one, and as I alluded to before, if there were some changes in legislation around that signature process, there would be a lot more that we could do to actually get that finalized all in one place. I think the good thing is there, and certainly not to diminish the importance of having the document executed properly, but there is some legal precedent for wills being upheld that have not been executed, and the courts kind of ruling that the act of going through the process and writing the will was enough to kind of verify the intentions of the deceased. Now, probably should have prefaced all of that by saying I am not a solicitor and can't give any legal advice or anything like that in terms of when we're talking about executing documents, but it is good to see that there are some changes happening on the court side in terms of kind of with respect to online wills and what that means. So we're hopeful that one day there will be a future state where we can just get everyone signed and witnessed all online and really streamline that process. But yeah, until that day, there is kind of that question mark at the end there, unfortunately.
Wonderful. Okay, I think we're going to wrap it up there. We got to nearly all the questions, I think, Adam and Mike. Thank you so much for Nicola in the background. Lots of them were answered. If there's any questions out there that didn't get answered, please, reach out to Adam and Mike. You've got their email addresses there. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise and your insight. We really appreciate our partnership with Gathered Here, and we hope that everyone out there, the best of luck with their Gifts and Wills fundraising. You'll be getting the slides and the recording very soon. Enjoy your afternoon and the rest of your week. And from F&P and Gathered Here, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you.
Thanks, Claire. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks. Bye, everybody.